afternoon. My name is Inkiru Ejimafor. I'm a mortgage and insurance broker, so I help people source funding for property investment, either through your traditional mortgage or bridge finance, if you're familiar with that. So I've helped people fund HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy, traditional buy-to-let mortgages. Supported living is becoming trendy. So if you need help, or if you just want to have a conversation about funding, what that investment looks like, start to finish, I'll be around. So let me know.
We'll be calling on you for some of the answers. Yummy, you're up next. Remember, 30 seconds or less. Give Yummy a round of applause, please.
Thank you, Anthony. Hi, everyone. I'm Yomi, and basically, I'm a systems and growth marketing partner. What does that mean? I used to be a letting agent, and I found that a lot of times in the community, building trust and getting together is difficult. So I've helped a few property entrepreneurs build direct-to-landlord distribution systems. Some of them have grown their leads, grown their revenue, and expanded into Dubai with the systems that I've built. So, yeah, that's basically a bit of a summary.
Thank you. So we're going to get started because, as I always say, I like to start on time and run on time to respect your time. There's other places you could be on a Saturday. So we're going to be talking about different things about property investing. We have Juanita, who is representing TV Edwards. If Juanita could come to the stage. And you could just give us a quick introduction to who you are.
Hi, my name's Juanita Francis. I'm a partner and head of property at TV Edwards Solicitors. We're based in Whitechapel and Clapham. I deal with property, and I'm a conveyancer, property lawyer. So if you're wanting to buy or sell property, remortgage, lease extensions, that type of thing, I'm your person. That's me.
Lease extensions, that's something we get asked about a lot. We also have Hasvi, who will introduce herself, and we will be drawing on her for a lot of questions as well.
Thank you, Anthony. So I'm Hasvi. I'm a mortgage broker by day and a property investor by night, and everything else that you want to do with buildings and property. Excited for this session.
All right. I'm going to move these two seats. So first and foremost, I do want to say something that I said in the earlier session, which is property is not for everybody. Property is not for everybody. There's a conversation that a lot of people have because they're on TikTok, they're on YouTube, and these things fall in your feed. And it's always, I can help you make money with no money down. You don't have to invest any time. You've heard it all. But the truth is, with almost anything, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And when it comes to property, you can get yourself in a situation where you end up getting yourself in a lot of trouble. So quite often, I would say to people, and we have a mutual friend named Muzzy, you have to check your why. Why do you want to get into property? And quite often, if someone is talking to you about property or talking to you about property courses, they're trying to sell you the course, okay? Now, I know that there's some people that have very good courses, so I'm not saying all courses are bad, but what I would say is caution you and say, make sure you do your due diligence, make sure you ask questions, make sure you get some genuine testimonials, because you can win big, but you're more likely to lose big if you don't do things right. So we're going to kick off, and I'm going to make sure that we have some time to answer your questions. So I'm going to start with Juanita, who I have to say, one of the reasons why I'm really pleased to have TV Edwards here is because I personally send probably 90% of my clients to TV Edwards. Now, the reason why I do that is not because I know someone that works there, but because the feedback that I got when I started working with TV Edwards in the early days was really good. They're responsive, They work with the clients. A lot of my clients are either skilled worker visas or they're first-time buyers. And it's a little bit more work to work with those people. There are other law firms that, as I was building my network, I would talk to, and they would say, no, we don't want anyone until they're ready to buy right now. We only want, portfolio landlords. But, I mean, they do all of that. TV Edwards does all of that. But I would say that as someone who refers to them regularly, I always get good feedback. So it's good to have you here, Juanita.
Thank you for the lovely plug there.
Could you just tell me first, like, what does a property solicitor do? What is your role? What do you do?
Yes, so our role is really to do your due diligence, for you when it comes to the property that you're looking to invest in. So if you're wanting to buy a property, quite often you'll look at the agent's particulars and you'll decide that this looks like a good deal. The price is right, for example. You've been to the property, it looks great and it suits your needs. What I will then do is check that, legally speaking, the property is sound. There are lots of things that you won't know just by viewing the property, going to see the property, and the agent won't tell you certain things because the agent probably won't know either. And so my job is then to really investigate the property from a legal point of view and to let you know what the risk is like, and to advise you as to whether this is a sound investment for you. Not just investments, but also properties that you want to buy just to live in, ordinary residential properties too. So that's what we do in a nutshell.
Okay, so thank you for that. I do find that when I deal with first-time buyers, I've had the question, well, I can just do it all myself. Why do I need a solicitor? Could someone actually purchase a property without using a solicitor?
You actually can. It is possible to do, but I would not advise it. I would strongly advise against it. You can if you are a cash buyer. So if you're a cash buyer, then that's not a problem. In theory, you could do your conveyancing yourself. If you're buying with finance, however, your mortgage lender will absolutely require you to instruct a solicitor. So you wouldn't have a choice in that scenario. But even if you are a cash buyer, again, there are so many things to look out for. Lease, if you're buying a leasehold property, leases are 30 to 50-page documents written normally in quite archaic English. You need someone to be able to go through and tell you what these things mean. Is the ground rent an ordinary ground rent, or is it an escalating ground rent, which you might find very difficult to sell in the future? Are there things that restrict the use of the property in the lease, hidden in the lease? Perhaps you're wanting to buy a property and you've got a great plan of converting it into a 3-bedroom. It's a 2-bedroom flat and you want to make it into a 3-bedroom flat. But there could be clauses in the lease which say that you can't do that. You can't knock down walls, or perhaps you can knock down walls, but you need to get certain consents. And these are all things that lawyers are trained to pick out and look for and advise you on. So even if, yes, in theory, you can do it yourself, I wouldn't recommend that you do. The rule in law is buyer beware, caveat emptor, and that means that the onus is on the buyer to pick out all of these issues. It's not for the seller to tell you what the problems are. So it's really important that you have an advisor that's able to tell you what those issues are.
That's really good. And I like that bit about buyer beware, because quite often I do see that people want to go into property and they want to cut corners. They want to find the cheapest solicitor and not pay broker fees or things of that nature, not understanding that, like they say in the States, sometimes when you cut corners, you end up buying them. And with property, it can be a very expensive mistake. So speaking about broker fees and things of that nature, what are some of the challenges that you are seeing in the market right now as a mortgage broker?
Thank you, Anthony. Before I answer that question, I'm going to give a nod to Anita. You're doing a great job. You're fantastic, and you cannot do this without a proper solicitor conveyancer. So if you are thinking of it, get a good one. In terms of the challenges that I'm seeing from a broker perspective is in the last 2 weeks, the interest rates. Like you wake up in the morning and in the afternoon they're gone. Lenders are shutting down rates. They're pulling off deals from the market. And that has been quite a challenge. I mean, we saw this in 2008 with a crash. We've seen it as well when MMR came through when they're trying to rewrite policy. We saw this with Liz Truss, shan't say much. But this time it's pretty on, like it's you can't even see where it's coming from. It's from all angles. One lender's increasing rates, the other one is decreasing rates, one's pulling rates off the shelf. So it's having a mindset that is on the money, that is on the pulse. You have to be in the moment and constantly watching what lenders are doing and informing your clients as well. So sometimes customers don't pick up phones and they don't give you documents. That is a challenge. I think Anthony alluded to that earlier on, that when you ask for documents, give them, because I could ask you for 3 months bank statements today. You want to come back in 2 weeks, that deal is gone. And for me to explain to you, and I've tried to call and I'm saying it's gone, you're thinking I'm trying to charge you more money. So work with your broker and respond so that you can be able to do what you want to do timely.
That's very helpful and very good advice about responding to your broker and making sure that you are talking to your broker, you're asking the right questions. Don't assume you know something. If you don't know, ask. That's what the broker is there for. Now, I do want to ask you a little bit about supported living, because the young lady mentioned supported living, and that seems to be a hot topic right now. What are your thoughts on that whole market around supported living right now?
From a social aspect, I think it's fantastic. We're doing a good service to the community from that area. From a lending and brokerage aspect, it's a challenge because it's new. We didn't have this maybe 15 years ago. You had your standard buy-to-lets, but people are now looking at other ways, other strategies to invest in property. And supported living is one of those that's quite topical, especially in the African and Caribbean community, because we've just found out we can make tons of money from having supported accommodation and supported living. I personally enjoy those mortgages because I find them challenging. They're adding skills that I didn't have when I started this journey 20 years ago. And they're very rewarding. So because they're challenging, they're very rewarding, and they do fit what the investor's trying to achieve, and it's getting it structured right. So just a nod to the young broker in the room, make sure you work with the right team, because it's not every law firm that knows how to conveyance the specialist lenders for that area. And it's not every lender that knows the lending criteria for it, because is it commercial? Is it buy-to-let? Where does it sit? So lean into experienced brokers, get that expertise, because if you become an expert in that area, you're going to be rewarded nicely. And again, I'll nod to solicitors. I've lost a couple of deals by engaging solicitors that didn't understand the supported living paperwork and how those mortgages are structured, because they're not your standard mortgages. So engaging professionals right on will give you the rewards you're looking for. And don't shy away from paying the broker fees, because Anthony and I get asked some difficult questions, which we pretty much do the underwriting now, isn't it? If you compare to how mortgages were when the tree chain thing, oh, you want this, you want that. Now we are underwriting for you. So being open and honest helps, and supported living is a very gray area at the moment. So when you're being asked questions, just say them and don't lie. Don't say it's a buy-to-let and then turn it into supported living. Don't do that. I've had people saying, oh, my friend just told me I can get a buy-to-let. Don't do what your friends are doing, because if you live in the UK, you know the system and the policymakers watch you from a distance, but they will be coming.
That's good. And that leads me to a point that I say a lot. Don't get your medical advice, your financial advice, or your legal advice from TikTok. All right? Don't do it. I delved a lot more into the whole social media stuff over the last 2 years. And now that I understand how the algorithms work, I understand the distorted motivation of what internet influencers do. So for them, it's about clicks. It's about the provocative statement. It's about the contrarian take. So they're never going to say, you know what, banks love lending to people, and they want to lend to you. Because you're not going to click on that. You're going to click on the 10 secrets why banks are ripping you off, right? So that's what happens. So when you're watching these videos, I'm not saying that everyone is scamming you. I'm just saying their job usually is making the content. So usually they're not licensed. Usually they're not brokers. They'll be talking about products and services, and maybe they'll say a thing that structurally is correct, but factually is not correct, or structurally it's correct, but it wouldn't apply to you. So you mentioned something about the rates changing. One of the things that I find quite often is when someone comes to me and their first question is, can you get me the best rate, and what's rate? When all they're doing is talking about rate, I usually slow down with them. I usually slow them down and say, well, rates are reflective of you. So if you have only been in the country 6 months and you have questionable credit and you're self-employed, and what else? What else is going to make it different?
You're on a visa and you have no like registry with your, what's it called, the voters roll.
Yeah, you're not on the voters roll. You're not going to get the, the 95% loan to valuation with Nationwide, Barclays, Halifax. You're not going to get it. That's not to say you won't be able to get a mortgage. So when you're engaging with someone, be open, be honest, ask the questions, find out what you need to know that your broker can give you the best advice. So I'm going to ask you, Juanita, what are probably 3 things that happen when you're first engaging with someone that indicate to you that you probably have to slow the person down and ask them a few more questions, or maybe they need to ask themselves some more questions?
One of them, I would say, is that they haven't spoken to a mortgage broker yet. And we've got 2 excellent mortgage brokers here. Yeah, I would say one of the things that people need to do is make sure that you've thought about your finances and how you're going to, fund a property deal. Often people will come to me and they just know that they want to buy this property, but they haven't looked at really anything else. So that's something definitely that I would say you need to think about. Also, one of the things that's becoming really a big thing with lawyers at the moment is the regulation around source of funds and funding. And you must make sure that you've got your source of funds evidence in place. That's one of the things that can really slow down a deal if you've got, various different sources of funds. You've got a gift from this person and, investments to liquidate over there and all sorts of different things. I think people sometimes they're surprised when I ask them to provide copies of those documents. I would like to say that it's nothing personal. Sometimes people think that, we're suspecting, that your funds are, not above board, but it's not the case. It's just that the government requires us to do these quite detailed and quite intrusive checks, but they are required. So making sure that you've got your paperwork in place and that when we ask for them, you give them over and not be kind of difficult about doing that is quite important.
I'm going to get back to you, but I want to build on something that Juanita was saying. It is that thing of we're asking because we have to provide it. We're not asking it. Obviously, it would be a lot easier if we could just press a button and get you a mortgage. We wouldn't ask for things if we don't need them. And when it comes to source of funds, and I'm going to hand over to you on this one, I see a lot of, so who here is from a West Indian background? West Indian. So you know what a partner is, right? All right, so every culture has this process. I call them cultural savings accounts, right? So it's the process of, you have, let's just say, 5 people, and every month, each of those 5 people puts money in someone's bank account. And then that person gets that money, and then they use that money for whatever, and then they pay into it. So every culture that I've come across has something like that. Now, the bit that I don't understand is why people still do it. I can understand at a time when people didn't have access to banking, or it was difficult to have access to banking, but there's no need to do it now. So I've caused offense with some people because I'm like, well, if you're every month giving someone £1,000, let's just say, for 12 months, that's £12,000, right? £12,000. So how much have you put in?
12,000.
How much do you get out? even a bank account that had low interest, you'd get a little bit back more than you've put in. So if you have the discipline to put this £1,000 or 500 or whatever in this cultural system, just put it in a bank account. Just put it in a bank account. And when it comes to source of funds, start to prepare your things early, because I find a lot of people, they have, like me, I have 3 bank accounts. But when they come to get a mortgage, it's like, oh, this is my Revolut bank statement, and this is my that, and this is my other one. Start to tidy things up. Put things in a high interest savings account, because remember, your deposit won't leave your hands fully until a couple weeks before you get your keys. So especially if you have a big deposit, you could have had that sitting in a bank account making some money to offset our fees. So do you come across people that use the cultural savings?
Every day, and it's evolved now. I'll share. I've seen one of my customers from, I think, a month ago. I've had to push back. What he was now doing, this clever young man, he's on a skilled visa, and he thought, I don't trust the UK, I don't trust their banks, I don't even trust the cultural system. I'll take money back to Nigeria because my friends are in Nigeria. So does everybody know what the risks are with particularly Nigeria? Yeah, he didn't know that, because to him it's home, isn't it? He doesn't see it as the high risk area that financial services and the rest of the world see it as. So lo and behold, he has been saving his deposit money in an account he holds in Nigeria with his friends. Not clever. And the poor man, when I asked for his deposit, he didn't tell me that the money was coming from Nigeria. And his friend transferred it back to him through, is it some money transfer thing, Lemify, as you do. And I'm like, what's gone on here? It's like, oh yeah, you can see it's my salary. It's gone to Nigeria. It's come back through Lemify. I was like, no, it doesn't work like that. You could have done this here. Why did you choose Nigeria? So to cut the story short, people are always looking at things that they think work. So speaking to professionals and experts will help you, because innocently you might think, you know what, I'm familiar with this community setup or with this way because that's how I grew up. But this is England. There's processes and there's structures in place. And I've had a customer I spoke to a few days ago, and he said to me, wow, I've lived here 5 years, but I've actually been living in Harare. That's the capital of Zimbabwe. I've not integrated. I've refused to learn. And it's a shame, because all my workmates and friends, we tell each other these stories, and this is what we all know. And he was mortified and floored by things that he thought he knew. So yeah, doing things right will definitely save you some pain. And yeah, it's good to be cultural, but let's also be practical. When in Rome, do as the Romans.
Very good. And I see you have a book. So could you tell us a little bit about your book?
Thanks, Anthony. I think you actually pushed me to write this, so thank you for that. I've been in this industry for a while, and I've refused to put pen to paper, because I think it's a very thin line, isn't it, between regulation and giving advice and just talking to your people. So after a long journey, I've decided, and I did, birth this book. And the reason behind it is, with experience and the knowledge and the things that we come across every day, you're thinking, surely you cannot have a rate discussion. You're not a rate machine. You can't have a discussion about deposits, about solicitor. Those are basic things, but our people don't know, and most people don't know. It might be basic to me and Anthony and Juanita because we're in the industry, but to everybody else, it's not everyday business. So this book is based on that, building property wealth without privilege. And it's just meant to be a very simple guide. It's not the only reference you should use, but it's a simple starting point. It's very succinct, and it talks to everybody, whether you're an existing landlord or getting on the property ladder. And it's written from a point of my own lived experience and journeys that I've seen and success stories that I've shared in the book as well. So get a copy from me today. I am giving them signed, or not giving, I'm selling them signed. It's on Amazon, but it won't have my lovely signature. And I believe that this is going to be a game changer for our community, because I've looked at other books before I wrote my own, and I thought, you know what? This is something that I would have bought.
Excellent. Yeah. So that feeds into one of the points. Things like this and networking events and learning is key to your property journey. So it's not just about being in silos where you're just getting the same information, because what can happen is in certain silos, misinformation just speeds up and it speeds up. And then you have a lot of people doing the wrong thing. So I want to, we're not closing out, but I do want to thank everyone for being here and remind them that as the Redbridge Chamber of Commerce, we have a property and finance subgroup. So we focus just on everything property related. So unlike the other subgroups who might focus on retail, then we have one that focuses on digital and online, you'll be able to come to us, and TV Edwards is a member of the chamber. You'll be able to get support, advice, information. We have smaller meetings. So last week, I believe it was, we had a financial literacy workshop. So we do things to help support you that you don't have to take that information from TikTok. Or quite often on TikTok and on social media, you get good concepts. There's good concepts that you can find out, but then you can now speak to an individual. A mortgage and a property and the process is very unique. So you always want to have that conversation. And as far as preparation, I would say, and I'm going to ask each of you, I always tell people to come and speak to me 6 months before they think they're ready. 6 months before they think they're ready. And I'll say that because quite often when I tell them to send their credit report, 9 times out of 10, there's something on their credit report that they weren't aware of. And maybe it's something that's been misreported. It gives us time to be able to resolve that issue and get it updated. So I'll start with you, Juanita. What would you say are some timelines that you would give someone either before coming to you or in the process of working with you?
Yeah, so I would say, as I've said already, have your finances and your sources of funds in order. Speak to a solicitor as well early. Make sure that you have a good solicitor, a good lawyer, a good conveyancing team on board. And one of the things that I always say is do not go with the cheapest. It's fine to go with a cheap lawyer, but don't go with them because they're cheap. There are so many firms, so many lawyers out there, and the quality in the service is, the range is vast. So look at reviews, look at recommendations. The lawyer that you choose really can make or break your deal. If you've got a lawyer that doesn't answer the phone, doesn't email you, or you're working with a firm where you've got a team of 10 junior members of staff, you never get to speak to the same person every day. It's one of the worst things. So get a good lawyer early, speak to them, make sure they, even when you're in the process of getting a quote from them, are they sending you a quote within a reasonable time frame? That's a good indicator as to whether they're going to be responsive. So do your due diligence there. And yeah, I think those are the main things. I think getting your finances in place, get a good lawyer. And I think once you've got those two things, the professionals should then be able to, take it from there. So.
Excellent. And what would you say, at what point in the process should someone come and talk to you?
I would say the moment you start thinking about wanting to buy a property, whenever that is, just have that thought process on paper with an expert. I mean, people in our community don't like to engage professionals, but then I ask them, would you have your tooth removed by your friend down the pub? So why would you have your money advised by yourself and your mates? This is, your life, your home. And like you said earlier on, you cut corners, you pay for them. You pay peanuts, you buy monkeys, isn't it? So just make sure you don't shun from prices, because what you're paying for isn't what you can get on ChatGPT or from your friends. It's a wealth of experience built over years. I've had a person trying to do a cash buy before, just to nod to solicitors. He had the money and he wanted to buy this property because it was on the market grabs and he wanted to get in and out, and he didn't want to engage a solicitor. We insisted that he does a solicitor engagement or instruction. It turns out that the person who was selling that property was a deceased person's son. Same name, same first and last name as the dad. When you call your children Junior and this. So this man had lived with his dad all his life, and it was his dad's carer. Dad passed away. He lived there. Everything was in his name, like the mail. And it looked like him. And he was going to buy the estate from not even the owner of the estate. So it's important to engage professionals. And I would say speak to them, from the moment you even think about it, and then you know your thought process is secure.
Excellent. So we're going to take some questions from the audience. I know some of the stuff we've been talking about are the fundamentals, and we do have some property professionals in here, so you can throw us the difficult questions as well. Yes, could we get her the mic? Thank you. And could you just say your name and what the question is, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Nelly Chudi. I am an accountant. And also, before I put my question forward, I do train people to set up supported living and care businesses. And I would like TV Edwards, if they are part of that process, I would like to be in touch, and also brokers, if it's something that they can do, because the market is higher. The demand is just unbelievable. Yes, what I would like to know, how are you part of supported living? If yes, how can we work together to support the community? I don't know if it's. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Nelly. Yes, supported living is the in thing, and I am part of it. I would like to nod to my own solicitor sat over there, Tatenda, all the way from Birmingham, West Midlands, helping me set up my supported living and my husband's portfolio in that area. So not only do I have professionals with me, I've made them family friends. You'll be a friend soon, Juanita. And I can write the mortgages for it as well. So absolutely would love to work with you.
I'll be honest, TV Edwards, we don't specialise in supported living, so I won't say that we do something that we don't. But there, you may, I think you pointed out someone that probably has got a good amount of experience in that area. So.
And that's what I love. That is huge, because quite often, especially when you're dealing with one-man bands, they can do everything. And so they'll practice at your expense. So it's really good, and I appreciate the honesty, and that's what you need in a solicitor, in a broker. Like, if someone comes to me and asks me about a product or something that I don't know, I'll tell them I don't know. Someone in my firm will know, but I'm always open and honest and let them know that it's not something that I specialize in. So thank you for that. But yeah, I also can support with the supported living mortgages, and I think you said you do it as well. So there are people. Next question from anyone? Anyone? Any questions? A round of applause for Yenny, please. Doing a great job.
This might sound crazy. I was not aware that you can buy a property without a solicitor, so I've learned that today. I'm curious to understand who registers the property for them, who does all those searches that you would have been doing, and what does that look like for? I mean, I wouldn't advise anyone to do that, but those people that are taking that level of risk, who is how does the paperwork and all those searches? Because I would assume that maybe only solicitors have access to certain sort of information that's in the public domain, but not necessarily available to any member of the public.
Yeah. Anyone can register a title. It doesn't have to be a solicitor. You can send an application. So solicitors, we have a portal. It's called e-business services with the Land Registry, which makes it a lot easier for us to submit applications to the Land Registry. But you can submit your own application. I wouldn't advise it, because there's so many things that you need to know and get correct in your application before it's submitted. You need to make sure that you verify your ID to the Land Registry as well, which can be done without, in fact, you would still need to go for a solicitor for that bit, actually. But yeah, you'd need to verify your ID. All of those things are much simpler if you go through a solicitor. Searches, you don't, if you're a cash buyer, you don't have to have searches, but you would be silly, in my opinion, to buy a property without doing the proper searches. You can probably, I mean, we use search agents, that's where we get our searches from, and I would imagine that as a layperson, you could, as long as you pay for the search, you could probably buy your own searches from those same companies, potentially. So it can be done. It can be done. I've seen it. Maybe I haven't seen it very often. Maybe once or twice. So it's not a common thing, but it can be done. But really, I would not recommend it. Wouldn't recommend it at all.
I think what comes to mind is that thing, the lawyer who has himself for a client is a fool. Like, I just think certain things that you are doing, you should employ a professional. You should get the right person to support you. Do we have any other questions? Gentleman over there.
Hi, good afternoon to you. My name is Tayo from ELC Fire Safety. My question is, I'm interested in purchasing property from auctions. Could you tell me some of the potential pitfalls that could arise from purchasing that way?
Yeah, I was hoping someone would ask this
To
question.
bring that one up as well.
Yeah, auctions, really popular with investors, and really good, good way to find good property deals. I would say number one thing is, I feel like I keep saying the same thing over and over again, but the number one thing is you must get a solicitor to review the auction pack before you go and even think about sitting down to bid at an auction. When you go to an auction, as soon as the hammer goes down, I think these days a lot of them are online, so there's no hammer. But as soon as your bid is successful, that is essentially exchange of contracts, and you are legally bound to then complete that purchase, whether you like it or not. So if you've exchanged contracts at the auction, and then later on you find something that's wrong, or something that's not quite right, you will still have to complete and purchase that property. So it's really important. And I know people don't like to do it because they haven't even decided that they want to buy the property yet, and they don't like the idea of having to pay a solicitor a fee to review the pack. But it's that fee compared to the financial consequences of going ahead and buying this property if there's an issue, it's just a no-brainer. And I have seen it a couple of times. I've seen it twice in my career. I had one client who went to an auction and purchased a property at the auction, and then he came to me and said, I've got this really good deal, I found this property, I need you to do the conveyancing for me now and take it to completion. And I'm getting a mortgage with this bridging lender. So he wasn't a cash buyer either, he needed finance. And so I said, okay, went through the papers, liaising with the lender, and I can't remember what the issue was now, it was years ago, but there was a particular issue with the property, and the lender refused to lend. And the lender said, we're not going to give you this money to buy the property, and the client still had to complete. In fact, he couldn't complete, he failed to complete, and he lost the deposit that he paid when the hammer went down.
I'm going to let you answer, but did you see our reaction the moment he said auction? Did you see how all three of us reacted? You can go ahead.
It's an interesting word, auction, and people think you need brokers and solicitors after you've put your bid in. I think I'm going to say this, not a GDPR breach. I've actually got a case that I've put through to TV Edwards. This guy came to me, he'd put in his offer, a hammer had gone down, he had 28 days to finish his transaction. And he comes to me because someone told him I'm good at fixing problems, which is not great. And I'm thinking the clock started. Have you got solicitors? No. Have you a solicitor looked at your pack? No. What have you done? I've put my deposit. So he'd put down over £45,000, I think. And he hadn't done solicitors or the finance to purchase the property. So here I am. I had to call TV Edwards. I'm like, sorry guys, but we really have a hot potato here. This poor man, it's his first investment, and people had told him, no, auction is the best, and that's what he'd done. So luckily, I think we're on track. Mortgage is out. Solicitor pack is no concerns from what I've been told. So he was lucky, but you're not always that lucky. My husband's over there, close family friend of his, bought a property at auction up north. 30,000 he paid. Solicitor's pack came back, flawed. He lost the whole money. And he's my husband's friend, and he knows the wife is a broker. So can you imagine the shame when he came to me to say, I've lost £30,000 on a property. Can you help? Well, you know, people learn, but it's always important to engage us guys for a couple of grand than to lose tens of thousands.
Yeah, I would say this. We're going to wrap up now, but there's 3 products that I see online frequently that are amazing products when used properly. We talked about bridging. Bridging is an amazing product, amazing if it's done properly. Then you have HELOCs, home equity lines of credit. It's a really big thing on social media, it seems, but most of the people talking about it are talking about the States. So they do have HELOC, home equity line of credit products in the UK, but again, it's not for everybody. And then the auction. I have so many people come and they're like, oh, I found this house and it's dirt cheap, and alarm bells ring. And I would advise most people, if you're buying a residential home and it's your first home, you probably shouldn't be buying it through auction, with very few exceptions. Now, there's some experienced property investors in here that have probably built some of their wealth through buying through auction. So we're not rubbishing it. We're not doing that at all. But it's very important that you have the right conversations with the right people. If you're an experienced buyer, you have a great team, you have builders, all of that, it's a conversation I'll have with you. But for the most part, when someone's, you know, they came to me for a traditional mortgage originally, and then all of a sudden that 460 house that they were looking at, they come and say, oh, I found something for 200,000, then I would caution people.
Can I just add something quickly? The other thing just to bear in mind is that the traditional way to sell a property is through an agent. So you have to, it's not the only way, but that's typically the way. So you have to wonder sometimes why the property is being sold at auction. Again, not to rubbish it, because there are lots of good deals there, but oftentimes there is a reason why the property is being sold at auction. So you really need to be wise to that and see if you can get your lawyer to figure out what that might be. If there's no problem, great, then go ahead.
Okay, we're going to close out because the next session is going to start on the 4th floor shortly. Do keep in mind, make sure you get one of the magazines, because in the magazines, there's contact information for everybody. If you need to speak to TV Edwards, if you need to speak to Hasvi, you can go downstairs. They both have stands. And make sure, plug, make sure you join the Redbridge Chamber of Commerce, because we do have a dedicated team of property professionals, so it will help you in your journey. Right now, it's 50% off if you join before tomorrow. So you can scan the QR code at the pull-up banner downstairs, and or you can look in the magazine. We'll see you on the 4th floor in 15 minutes. Thank you.